I'm listening to good music. I'm trying to figure out how I can play it on here, but I don't know because I'm new to this. I'm also making sure that I'm actually live streaming right now, which would be good to know that I am. It says that I am live. I don't know. Yeah, it says that I'm live. I'm going to turn off this music because it makes it really hard for me to focus. And I'm also going to put on my other headphone just so that I can make sure that I can hear myself. If you see on my screen right now, I've got a little update from WebdriverIO. I'm just going to jump right into it right after I send out a little tweet. This is why I wanted music, because I wanted a little bit of background groove while you wait for me to do all this admin type stuff. But you don't get it. I'm sorry, because I'm not that good at doing streaming and things like that. I'm using open broadcast software. So if anybody knows how to do that, I tried doing some stuff, but I need to get it from my Chrome browser into from my Chrome browser into the stream itself. So I don't know. Anyway, let me do one more thing. Live stream. Boom. Okay, so first things first, we want to look at what do I want to look at? The $sign and $sign commands. These are pretty familiar. If you use something like jQuery, you might have noticed this. The one difference between the two is $sign selects one element and $sign selects two elements. So there's something new in JavaScript, fairly new. It's query selector. So you have query selector and then query selector all. Query selector will basically take a CSS query, CSS selector, and then return a single element, the first element that it finds in the HTML for that matches that selector. Now query selector all will return an array of elements, and that's the main difference between the two. So that's kind of the difference between $sign and the double dollar signs, I'm assuming. I need to actually double check that, but it's basically that $sign gets your first element and double $sign gets multiple elements. So pretty neat, and I'm going to take a look at trying that out today. And then after that, I'm going to jump into trying to run Spectre again. There was an update on the way that the Heroku deploy goes, so that it should be able to accept image uploads. So I want to take a look at that again. So that's what I've got planned for today. Let's jump into 4.40 and see how these commands work. So I'm going to open up my Sublime Text window. And then I'm just going to create a new project. Oh, goodness. It's updating things. Clear. Okay. Let's jump into here. We'll do our install of WebdriverIO. And then actually before we do that, I need to initialize the repo. So I'm going to initialize a basic npm repo just out of nowhere. I'm going to say -y. It's going to basically accept all the defaults. Then I'll install WebdriverIO and let that go. Let me make sure I don't have any servers running that could cause trouble. I don't think I do. No. Okay, and then I'll open up their page and see if they've got anything in here on the latest and greatest. Oh, they've got a search bar up here now, but it looks like maybe I need to do a hard refresh. Maybe the styles weren't quite there. So that's kind of neat. A quicker way to do searching is available now. So if I wanted to do like $, search for that. Hey, look at that. That's brilliant. Yeah, basically what I call element command. And I'm guessing $$ is to call elements. So if I do type the right thing, it's a utility statement. And yeah, if you're familiar with Protractor, they kind of use the same way. And I'm not sure, but jQuery may also use double $signs to select multiple. I feel like it doesn't though. Can't quite remember. Okay, so let's see how our install is going. It's in there. So next thing I'll do is initialize WebdriverIO by my config. I want to test locally. I'll use Mocha. Yeah, go ahead and install that for me. Sure, we'll keep them there. I'll use Spec Reporter. Sure. We want Selenium standalone for sure. Ooh, static server. I don't know what that is, but that seems interesting. Save that for later. Good. And then localhost sounds. Let's test out WebdriverIO. Okay, well that's installing. Let's look at this. Creates a static server for WebdriverIO. That's interesting. So if you only have front-end assets, this will spin up a static server that it will serve those front-end assets. So if you only have like HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you don't have an actual server behind the scenes, or it lives on like something basic, then you can use this to basically spin up a static server, which is really cool, especially if you have something like a style guide. You can point it to the style guide and test against your style guide instead of trying to test on the live site, which can cause a lot of trouble. Testing on a style guide makes things a lot simpler. It's not quite one-for-one what you want, but it is better than nothing. I'm going to go into my package JSON and update this just to reference WebdriverIO so that I can test a little bit easier. And then I'm going to make my test directory. And in there, I'm going to make my specs directory because that's where it's going to look for the files. And then let's go ahead and do test specs and then $.js. And here I'll do my basic describe. $sign should, I'll just do $sign. So it should find the first element that matches. Okay, and then we're going to just load the home page. And then we'll get our element is equal to browser.$. And let's go figure out what we want to match. So on the WebdriverIO website, let's get this fancy new little search box. What could we search by? Doc search? Okay, so we'll search for a doc search and then the input that has a type of text. And then, let's see, input type text. I'm just trying to make sure that there's no other inputs in here. I don't think there are. Okay, so that should return the first one. I'm going to jump in here and make sure that I'm testing this $sign correctly, or that I'm writing it correctly. Menu, outputs API. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So this is going to return the element, and from the element, I can do kind of different things. Let's get the text of the element, So I'm going to log out the element.text, and let me double check that text is actually good. Sorry, it's get text. So get text, and this is actually not going to return anything because I don't think there's any text in here. How about instead of getting the text, let's get the attribute. And the attribute we're going to get is placeholder. So we just want to see that the placeholder is a certain value. Okay, if I did things correctly, I'm going to make an assumption that I did, but let's see. Nothing's happening so far. That's really strange. Okay, I'm gonna couldn't connect to the server. Let's check out our configuration file. Maybe we don't have that turned on. So we've got our specs, that's good. We're doing Firefox. I'm gonna change this to Chrome. Sometimes I have issues with Firefox. That could be the issue. It's running Selenium standalone, so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna hope that it was just the Firefox thing. And let's run it again. There we go. You can see it in the background now. Oh, well, it already went and passed. Running Chrome should find the first element that matches, and here's the output of that text. So reporters click ... That's what the placeholder text is. So we could reporters click ... We could do like an assertion in here, just expecting. Let's do that. Variable. We need to load the Mocha library. Expect assertions from chai, which goes into the Mocha library. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to expect that to equal, what do we want? Reporters click. There. And then I'm going to run this, and while I'm running that, I'm going to come back here and just kind of explain what happened. So here, this got an element, and it returned it to our variable. And then from this element, I can take any sort of other action that's based off those. That's kind of like an element action. So this is a neater way of basically doing browser.getAttribute and then passing in your selector here. So here would be like the doc search thing input. So instead of doing that, I can move that information to this element, and it just cleans up your test, makes it a little bit easier, especially if you have multiple element things. So if I wanted to add a value, value, I think it's got to be value. I think it's set value actually, sorry. Set value to my search. Again, I can just use L instead of having to do browser.setValue and then pass in the same selector again and again. So this is like, it's almost like page objects light, like a light version of it, where you're defining a reference and using that reference to build everything out. It's just you don't have the custom actions on it. The other thing I'm going to do is I'll change this to search input, just to be a little bit more specific on what we're doing. So search input.setValue, and then we could actually do .submit maybe, and then let's get the URL from the page and see what that is. So, okay, that failed because cannot set property files of undefined. What? line 8. There's not even a property files. I bet I was doing something in the background when I was running that. So I'm going to ignore it and hope that things work. Yeah. Here's my test. What does that mean? Line 8 cannot set property files of undefined. Oh, you know what I'm doing? That's crazy. This was all messed up. So I need chai.expect. My requirement, I required Mocha instead of chai because I just wasn't thinking through things. And so that's what happened. And so it was like, this was a Mocha reference instead of the expect assertion reference. So that's what's going on there. Oh, I need to install chai. I think that's all I need to do. Okay, well, it did made a little bit further. It didn't log my URL. I'm gonna turn on logging. Log level. Let's do verbose. So this is going to log out all the different commands that WebdriverIO is sending to the Selenium server so we can see where it gets to before it fails, because that failure message didn't really help us at all. Okay, so it's loaded the page. It searches, okay, and it also saved a screenshot, so that's kind of nice. So here we try and set the value to my search. And then we try to, then we get a screenshot because for some reason this failed. I probably did something wrong here. So let's see what this screenshot says. Patience while I look this up. Okay, so in error shots, I've got my error that just occurred. So the search is in there. That's good. I'm guessing when I did the submit, it freaked out because normally you only do this on the form field. So instead I'm going to try, but I was thinking that you could submit, normally you only submit on a form element. And I was thinking that you can also submit a form. Oh, it's not submit. It's got to be submit form. I think the caffeine is kind of kicking in. The caffeine and lack of sleep is all kicking in. And then it looks like I'm doing things wrong anyway. Okay, just a second. Submit form. So I had just called submit, so that was kind of bad. I'm wondering if I can do a submit form on the input element, because it either takes the form element or an element inside of the form. So I'm wondering if I can use a reference to the element inside of the form to submit the form. And what I did wrong was I typed in submit instead of submit form, and that was wrong. And then it also sounds like I can just use $sign instead of browser.$. So let's try those two things out. So there it's submitted and the test failed still. I actually did try to submit the element. I'm probably just trying to do too many things. Okay, this is new. Weird. Oops. Anyway, I'm going to skip past this because basically the idea I wanted to show off was that you can use $ instead of browser.element, and that browser.element is really cool. So that is neat. The next thing I'm going to do is the multiple ones. It should find many elements that match. So here, instead of search input, I'm going to do my navigation, and then I'm going to get the navigation of the page. So up here, we have this navigation bar, and it's under the nav of main nav. And I need to use $. So main nav and then the li underneath it. So we have a ul and then an li underneath that. So this is going to get all of the LIs, and one of the problems is that it's also going to get these LIs because of the way that CSS selectors work. So I need to be a little bit more specific and use child selectors and say I only want to get the top level ones. So nothing inside, I just want to get the top level ones. So that's what I'm going to do to search it, and then that's going to be my, I'm going to call this menu items. And then the next thing I'm going to do is get the menu items, get the very first menu item, and get the text from it. And I'm going to expect it to be home, to equal home. And then I'm going to get the second menu item. So this is 0 indexed. Let me double check to make sure that's actually accurate because I could be wrong. li2. Okay, yeah, so it is 0 indexed because it's it says 2 here, but it's the third item. That's because it starts with 0. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the text of the first item, which is 0, and then I'm going to click the second item, and then we'll log out the URL of the page. And I think browser.url is what logs that out. I'm getting a lot of load. Okay, yeah. Yes, there we go. Okay, save that, and let's go ahead and run just this test. Expected /io to equal home. Oh, well then, this is also a nav element. So I messed that up. Yeah, so it got the first item and the text in there was IO. So I need to like move that around. So what I need is instead of the first one, I want the second one, and then I want to click the second one, and I could do something like expect my browser URL to contain something to contain. When I click developer guide, it's going to contain guide. There we go. What did I do? Did I do that wrong? On line 23, expect browser.url to contain object.indexOf is not a function. What's that? So Object.index of is not a function. Basically is telling me that expect is not a function. That's weird. This is what happens when you live code, is you just forget things. Okay, so what happened was the object that came back from the browser.url, or the value that came back from browser.url was an object instead of a string, and I was expecting it to be a string, but it's not a string, and I did that wrong. API. So URL will actually get URL. That's what I did wrong. Yeah, sorry. It's gonna, URL is gonna return, I don't think URL returns anything specifically. Sorry. Console log browser.url. I wanted to console log browser.getURL, and I didn't even want to console log that. Yeah. I'm just confusing myself today for no specific reason other than I'm trying to rush through this for no specific reason. But getURL will return an object that's basically the state of that last call. And then, did I say getURL? URL will return an object. GetURL will return a string. So now if I run this, not npm start, npm test. Now if I run this, it should all work, and then we can jump into trying out Spectre again, which I'll need Postman open for that. It failed to load because it was just a little slow. Everybody's slowing it down. But other than that, it pretty much worked. So I'm just going to call that a success. And yeah, that's $, and that's how it works. Let me double check. Get your, okay. Yeah, so I'm just reading through the comments. Basically, URL returns the whole protocol thing that WebdriverIO gets back from Selenium, and get URL is what I wanted for the text. So that's what happened there. Little mistakes that kind of get you here and there when you're trying to remember specific nomenclature for how you do specific things. So like instead of what I do up here that I messed up, instead of submit, you do submit form, things like that. I make those mistakes quite often, which is why having the API available is super handy just to double check on those things. So that's that. That's the $, and $. Cool things, makes it a little bit easier to write test, a little bit cleaner to write test, and looks a little bit more like jQuery, which is, I think, a good thing because it makes it a little bit more readable from a front-end perspective on how the tests are written. So like this is probably a lot more understandable for somebody who's done jQuery in the past than browser.element. You know, this is something brand new, whereas this is something familiar. Like they're like, oh, okay, so this is an element that's wrapped in WebdriverIO, and so I can use things like get attribute or set value on it, or I can reference it as an array and then get the text on those single items. So that's that. If you do only have one element that matches this, I'm pretty sure it's going to return an array. It's just going to be an array with one item. So just keep that in mind, that just because it only had one match, as long as you're using $, it's going to return an array. And I could double check that, but you may want to validate that on your own, but I do want to kind of make sure that you watch out for that if it does come up. So next things up is Spectre. We kind of jumped into it a while back, and I'm going to open up my Spectre project. So I just spun up a new server doing deploy to Heroku, and then I'm going to go into Postman, and on there I'm going to update this. I've got my body with my run ID. So this is going to take some remembering because I kind of forgot how everything works. But the first thing I need to do is create a new run. And that's going to be there. I'm going to copy all this stuff out because I don't want it yet. I'm going to close that. And then if I run this, it should return a run ID. Post runs project. Oh, I need to pass in some information to it. So I need a project, new, and then what's the other thing I need? A suite. Sweet. Actually, I have a better idea. Sweet. Let's try that. Okay, good. So I've got my ID of my run. This is my suite ID. And then if I go back to my Spectre projects, I should, oof, that's not good. I think what happened is I have a run out there, but I haven't actually added anything to it. So now I'm going to submit my screenshots. So tests, this is where I pull in that information from here. My run ID is going to be 2. Go back. Name, test.name is my test. Browser width, and then the last thing I need is an image. So, politics. Let's keep out of politics. Let's upload that one. Okay, and then let's try running this. Cross our fingers. Change was rejected, 422. Maybe I don't need that. Because I didn't need it. Well, I don't know. Oh, and then screenshot. Oh, I hope it wasn't just me forgetting screenshot because that's a lot to undo. That's interesting. Nothing happened, but sometimes nothing happening is good. Oh, geez. Oh, it's not happy at all. Ooh. There is a back end to this called admin that you can get to, that you can see some stuff. So here's my new project. It's not uploading the test, so something went wrong with that test. Let me pull up on the side of my screen, on my other screen, real quick. I'm going to load a basically test script that I had in place that I want to use for testing. I know that doesn't make any sense. You'll understand in a second. Okay, so I'm going to paste that in here. This, I'm going to change that to be my new Heroku app that I've got set up. And then change this. So this is just like a dummy little test that I was running through. And I think I showed this the other time. Start run. Okay. So this is going to be a non-WebdriverIO test. It's just going to be a, we'll even put it in here. We'll call it Spectre. And then we need to upload a screenshot. So I'm going to move a screenshot over to this directory. so that we can upload it. I just need to get to a screenshot. Okay, now I have a screenshot to upload, so let's do page.png, and then I'm going to jump back into my command line, and instead of running npm tests, I'm going to just call this via node. And I think I need to install request and Bluebird before I run this. npm install. And this might be Bluebird.js. It might yell at me for doing that wrong. No, looks like it worked okay. So let's see. Node Spectre, and let's see what this does. So we have our run ID right there, and it still says that it was rejected. Why? Maybe, I bet my project isn't. There's my project name. Man. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to come back into here, into my admin. I'm just going to clear all this stuff out. What's this do? Delete that. Basically, I'm just restarting. That's what's going on. Okay, so I don't have anything left in here. My site should work again. Okay, so I've got my projects. I need to create a project. That's the first thing I need to do. Even though it says I need to create a run, I first need to create a project. Double check that. How do I create a project is the question. So Spectre. I guess I could create one through here. That doesn't sound smart though. Let's check out their tests because I'm pretty sure they create projects themselves. Man. When all this is said and done, if I get this working, I need to type up a really fun little blog post about how to get all this set up because it's kind of confusing. They have one, but this, maybe that's what I need. Okay. So they introduce it. They talk about a lot of different stuff. And I don't think they talk about actually making the calls and things like that. No. Darn. Well, the easiest thing to do right now is just try and run this again. Because it's going to create that run ID. Okay, so that didn't work. And let's see what our state is now in here. It's probably going to... Well, we at least have a project, and it at least shows. So that's better that we have a project. So basically, I took a gamble and thought that my little test here, when it starts the run, when it creates this run, if the project isn't made, it's going to create it on its own. So that's what I did. The one thing is it's still not happy with this, but I wonder if that's because I just have all of this formatted incorrectly. So what do I need to do? Oh, you know what? I forgot. There's an upload form that I wanted to try out. What was it? There's just a little form that's on this page that I can use for uploading. Maybe it's an app. Views. Test/new. Okay, so this is it. It's just a basic little form, and This is going to tell me whether whether Heroku is now accepting my request or not. So I just need to get the path right. Views tests /new. Choose my file. Let's do that. And create the test. This is looking promising. Oh, that looks very good. That's a lot better than from before. So it returned the test ID, and if I jump back into here, sorry, I need to go back to my projects. So this is my test project that got created. Oh, that's so much better. And here's the screenshot. Okay, so now I need to figure out what I did wrong, what I'm doing wrong in here. Sorry, in this request. Maybe it doesn't need to be test, browser Chrome. So all this was just basic JSON that got returned. So maybe I'm sending that JSON incorrectly. So if I go back to here, we see we've got a run ID, name, browser size, and then screenshot. And all it's doing is submitting a create action. So maybe I'm going to get rid of this. This is one of those things where you change things 100 different times just to see if they run, to see if you can get them to work. And they never work. And then when you finally make progress in one area, it looks like it didn't have any progress just because you didn't, like something that you changed along the way broke it all. So there's my second run, and it doesn't have any tests. So, you know, it could be the fact that this create read stream is off, or the data is off, or something like that. So the next thing I want to do, is see if I can get this working in Postman with all my correct stuff. So run ID to my test, and then let's send this over. And what did I get back? I didn't get anything back, which is not what I wanted. I wanted things back. So jump back into here, and I'm going to listen to this request that gets sent out when I upload the image. So there's my image. I'll refresh the page because it's going to create a new test run. I'll change the file that I upload, and then in my network, lower that down a little bit. I'm going to preserve my log because when I hit create, it's going to refresh the page. And what you're going to see is a request that's going to go across the wire here, and I can clear all this stuff out. And it's going to contain all of the formatted data. So this is basically what it sent along. No, this is what it got back. That's all. So that's what it got back. That's my response. Request headers. Okay, that's what I want. My payload. So it was a form. Wonder if I need a token. So it does look like the name is wrapped. So that could be what's going on. Is that I need to have these names wrapped in the test object. So let's try that. Change you wanted was rejected. I wonder if I need this token. Well, at least I know that I can send that along. Let's try this. At least I know that form works now where it wasn't working before, and the format that I need the data in is there. So let's actually just, what was it? Node Spectre. Hey, that looks promising. That was a 200 response. And it had some good data in it. So if I come back here, there we go. Run number 3, passed, and there's the upload that I made. Neat. This is very good. Okay, so now what I can do is actually run this through WebdriverIO. I can stop logging that. I don't care about this stuff anymore. If error and response code, console log submitted. Okay, so I'm going to create a run. And I'm going to change the page that I'm testing. Because one thing I want to do is change the style. And so I'm going to test locally. And I'm going to test my course content page. Just because it's easy to get started and change. So, okay. So I'm going to test this page. Actually, let's not test this page because this page has a slider on it, so that could be kind of annoying. Let's test our product page, and we're going to check the breadcrumb, that the breadcrumb looks good, and then I'm going to change the font size of the breadcrumb, and we'll see what changes there. Okay, this is exciting. I'm excited by this because this could be a pretty good solution to a lot of trouble with managing screenshots in your tests. So I'm going to load my localhost page as my base URL. Instead of going to this funky blog place, I'm going to go to productpage.js or .html. I'm going to, here's the other thing I'm going to do, is this was written back before I switched over to the synchronous style. Browser.save screenshot. I guess this is going to screenshot the entire page. There is another utility called element screenshot that you can use to screenshot less than the entire page. Okay. And then I'm also, okay, so I've got done here. And I want to form error response, and then at this point I'll call my callback. This is kind of a mess because it's all test code, but I just want to see if I can get this to work. And I'm going to pass the done callback into there. So actually, I don't even need that information. Saving a screenshot to the page. I'm starting my run. I'm sending the screenshot. And I'm also changing that to be screenshot. Okay. Change that to product page, and then I'm going to call done. And I need to close that file because I need to move this file over into my test folder. Move Spectre to test specs. And then I'm going to just remove that other test. Actually, let's not do that. I'm going to run tests, and then I'm going to pass specs equals, oh shoot, npm test. I'm going to tell it just to run the Spectre test. Cross my fingers that this works. So here it takes a screenshot and cannot read property get text undefined. What? Why are you trying to run? I told you. I bet it's spec. I bet it's not specs. Regardless, I'm going to go back to here and see that I've got my project name. Ah, I didn't send the test. Okay. While that's running, I'm going to do some other stuff. I need to go eat. Sorry, this is just too exciting to have a possibility of working. So I was loading the page. It's got the page. It's going to take a screenshot of it, and then it's going to send that screenshot over. Ah, it didn't send the screenshot over. Why did it not send? So now the question is, why did it not send? Okay, I don't want that anymore. Go away. Don't want that. I want to open. Maybe the screenshot file path was wrong. Ooh, I bet it is. I bet the screenshot file path is wrong. Nope, it's right there. If that's the case, then possibly this read stream is wrong. No, it would have been right because it sends the whole thing in here. The whole screenshot path. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten rid of those errors already, or the responses already. Actually, I'm just going to do body. Yeah, my guess is this screenshot isn't being loaded quite right. Okay, this is my last try. And then I'm going to give up and try it again next week or something like that. Oh man, it didn't do any of that stuff. I wonder if it didn't even start run. I wonder if it didn't even send the screenshot in. Then. Yeah, I wonder if this even takes a done callback because of the way that all the async stuff goes through. I'm guessing it doesn't. So what could we do? Yeah. It looks like it's finishing before. So yeah, there's some work to do here around the different ways. I guess one thing I could do pretty quickly is change this back to not be async or not to be sync. And then I can update these to browser.url .save screenshot. And then I'll do .then. Oh man, can't type. So with the synchronous style, WebdriverIO kind of overwrites this method or kind of takes control of it. So I don't think they would take a done callback because that doesn't really make any sense for them to do that sort of thing. And so I need to change it back to the original for this because of it kind of ignoring that. And we need it not to ignore it because we need it for our asynchronous actions. Okay, so it at least passed this time, but it looks like it didn't actually send any, didn't log anything out. It did take a screenshot. Nope. I just want to see if it takes a screenshot or not. Then I'm almost done. And did it? It didn't. Oh, I know. I need a return browser. Return browser. Oh man, this is such a mess. Okay, so instead of doing the callback here, getting the result from that, I'm going to return this post and I'm going to change this to an async type. So basically what I did in the start run, and this is just going to be callback after callback. Or not callback, this is going to be kind of nesting fun. And let's see. Pyramid of Doom. So the first thing is I start the run, then I get the response from that run. If the status code is good, then I send the screenshot. I call send screenshot. I return that to the then function. It gets passed to this one, and I log everything out. And then when this is completed, it returns here, which returns to browser, which returns back to the test. If that made any sense. Hopefully we see some things logged out. There's a log and there's a path. Okay. Oh, so close. How far did we get? So it got to the path, which I have here. But what it didn't do was log any of this information out. Did it? 200 and then my path. It would have sent that. Oops. Let's just make it uglier. Oops. Because I really want this to work. Really and then the basic old console log here. So this is going to return a promise, which is the request promise. And let's return true. Okay. Didn't log out anything. That's not good. So it didn't actually make it to this statement. Why not? Why not? Oh, am I sending that wrong? I think I am. That format was incorrect. Post async takes a URL and then an object. URL and then an object. Because even if this fails, even if this stuff doesn't come back to it, it should at least upload the screenshot. That's what I'm hoping for. Nothing. I'm gonna have to take a look at this at some other time because I've run out of time. Darn. Landing page, run mate. Well, it's running. Just no baselines yet. So I'll work on that another time. That's all I got for today, and I'll see if I can get that working by the next time we do this. A little bit more work to do, but I'm pretty happy with the progress by being able to upload and being able to use this basic form to make things work. I just need to figure out the specifics of getting the file to upload. So don't know what's going on there, but I'll try and figure it out. And see y'all later. Bye.